So hey everyone, this video is going to be a bit different from my usual videos. Normally, I'm doing tutorials and stuff, but this time I thought I would actually kind of like play a game and try and kind of analyze it the way that I would do normally, like as part of my job. I'm a technical animator, and a big part of what that is to sort of create animation systems and sort of figure out good ways to create like jump systems and locomotion systems and combat systems and things like that, like for the animation. And so when a game comes out that looks pretty good and has pretty good animation, like Horizon Zero Dawn, which is what I've got here, I think it's a pretty common thing for technical animators to sort of load that game up and take a look at it through the magnifying glass and try and figure out how they've built their systems, because it's like animation systems, it's kind of like recipes almost, where it's like, if you're making a third-person game with a specific kind of type of locomotion, for example, then different games will have a different take on that, and those are all kind of like different recipes that you could then like remix and use in your own game. So I'm pretty much just going to play this, and if I spot anything where I think like that's worth talking about, I'll just call it out. And the first thing to say is like, look at this game. Like the graphics team at Gorilla, or the art team at Gorilla, sorry, as well, they are just incredible. And the way that this is lit is amazing. The way that this vegetation looks is amazing. These guys nailed it. I've finished this game, by the way. I kind of just rolling back to an earlier save so that I'm not doing any spoilers for people. So the first thing that I normally do in any game when I first fire it up, and I have to be careful that I don't get spotted by this thing here, the first thing that I normally do is just do this, is to jam the inputs in like lots of different directions to see what this looks like. This is the easiest way to break any animation system, because this is a total nightmare kind of scenario, because this sort of rapid shifting between states is really hard to get right, especially like rapid changes in direction. When you're making animation systems, you have to kind of make locomotion systems so that they're very responsive. And so that means that your character could be going very, very fast. She's probably going, I would say, about 5 meters a second here, maybe a little bit faster. And you have to be able to change direction very quickly so that the game feels responsive. But in reality, like, it would take a person moving at 5 meters a second a long time to sort of slow down. So it's kind of interesting just to sort of change directions to see what that looks like, to see how responsive that is. And Horizon feels pretty good in general. These 180 turns are actually a bit slow, maybe. So yeah, I'm also sort of noticing as well here, they have a ton of secondary motion on this character. Like, look at her hair kind of moving around, and all of the stuff on her clothing, and even the way that kind of like her bow jiggles around on her back. And this is great for kind of hiding any seams in the animation as it moves from one system to another, or as it does transitions. And this is one of the tricks that they learned on Assassin's Creed kind of like very early on. I think there's maybe a little bit too much motion on her hair here. It kind of wants to jiggle around a little bit too much, but that's kind of the nature of dynamics sometimes. And again, when you get these very fast movement changes in the character, it can be really hard to kind of dampen that stuff down. So what else? Another thing that I kind of look at is I look to see if the idols are, if they have like symmetry in the idols or not. Both I'm looking for kind of like this is a good posing in that it's kind of an offset stance, but what I mean is that kind of like this is right foot forward, and I'm kind of looking to see whether or not they have two idols. There you go, you got a left foot forward kind of one. I also kind of look and see kind of how they've put this system together. So if I just tap on the stick, it doesn't do a full step, and this is actually kind of like useful for say that you want to go up to the edge of something. Like if you're on the top of a building and you want to go over the edge, go look over the edge. You generally don't want to have like a full footstep in there, because it's like if you shift the character forwards like half a meter, you're going to go off the edge of that ledge. So you tend to kind of like want to have something like this just so that the character can edge forwards. Another thing I'd sort of look for, and again I'm about to get spotted I think. Oh no, he's alright, he's too far away. Another thing I kind of look for is whether or not they have what we would call stepped movement or analog movement speeds. So step movement speeds is where you go from a walk directly, is where they just have walk and run speeds, and don't have like analog movement, which is like where you can kind of rest in between those two things. So here they seem to have like analog movement. You see, like I can make her walk very, very slowly, and then if I push forward more gradually on the stick, she walks gradually faster and faster and faster and faster, until she then goes into a jog. But then even when she's in a jog, I can push to full extent. So what they probably did here is they might have created. It looks like they're just slowing down her regular walk, but it's possible that they're creating two different walks, like a zombie walk, as we would call it in some games, or a sort of faster walk and then blending between the two of those walks. Or it could just be that they're speeding that walk up, and then her run. Yeah, it's pretty analog. You can kind of notice this, I think, even more in the crouch system. So it's very analog, and then yeah, you sort of speed up, and probably I think that probably switches animation there because our arms tend to move up a little bit higher. The nice thing about analog movement speeds is, especially for something like a stealth game, if you're sneaking up behind somebody, you really get a lot of control, and you really get that sense that you are really sneaking up. I noticed that she kind of looked around her. I don't know if that's a dynamic look at. Yes, is she looking at that herb, maybe? It could just be part of the idle. If I just sit her here, she'll probably look around. She's not looking where the camera goes. That's another kind of thing that people usually do. So they have like a head look system that follows the camera. But that can kind of break the idle, sort of the sense of acting. Something else that I'd look for would be whether or not they have like a foot IK system in here, which they do. Although weirdly, something that I've noticed in Horizon is that if you move really slowly, the character's capsule doesn't actually move up slopes. So yeah, they have kind of an IK system in there. Whenever you're looking at slopes and stuff, it's interesting to sort of see if the IK system actually like collides with the slope before it puts the foot up, or whether or not it just it's actually kind of like moving where the foot is about to go. It's also interesting to see if they actually have animation for it. They seem to be looking down and up with their head a bit there. I think there's some sort of animation in there. But it's kind of hard to do slopes because you can run at like a 45-degree angle on the slope. Like if it was a set of stairs, for example, most people would think like, oh, we can just put one animation for running up the stairs, one animation for running down the stairs. But if you run at like a 45-degree angle up the stairs, then it doesn't really work in the same sort of way. So usually that's why you use a procedural system or something for that. So this jump animation, they have a little bit of anticipation. She ducks down for about a frame or two before she goes up. This land kind of feels a little bit clunky to me maybe, but I'm not sure what it is exactly. It could be the camera. Camera is a thing. I'm kind of rambling with this. I'm sort of going all over the place. Hopefully this is interesting. I don't know if it's interesting. I'm still going to post it. But so the camera is kind of like a big part of how a game feels, how the animation feels as well. An interesting thing with Horizon is that it seems really inconsistent in terms of where she is on the screen, and I tried to figure out like how this works exactly, because she sort of drifts off to the left here, and yeah, I'll move somewhere else. Like if I start sprinting, she tends to like centralize up, but then there are other times where it's kind of like, I don't know if it's to do with the framing or something, or sometimes if you get really close to a wall, some camera systems will actually push you out of the way. But But yeah, it's interesting. So what else is there in there? If you go into an A mode, it's kind of hard to see now that it's darker. So an interesting thing kind of here is that they seem to deal with all of their aim grid with the spine. Like, her arms aren't moving much at all, and this probably helped them out quite a lot in terms of different weapons. So, like, if I switch to a different gun, it's the same sort of thing. They just have a single arm pose, and they're dealing with everything with the spine. So all of the animations that are playing on the arm don't have to be they don't have to do different versions for aiming up and aiming down, and similar sort of when it's moving. Although they're going to have different like aims for the different, different stuff for the direction. I guarantee you that if you looked at that here. Like, the problem with doing it all just in the spine is that if you looked at this from third person, it would look terrible. She kind of gets away with it here because of the camera framing. But I don't know, am I crouched? That's probably even more difficult. Because, like, usually you're supposed to be able to kind of take the head and draw a line down, and that should be falling between the feet, otherwise you're off balance and you would be moving. So another thing that I look at with kind of aim system stuff is whether or not they kind of like spin the character on the spot, or whether or not they have kind of like an aim limit that is, or an aim sort of area, an aim blend space basically, which they seem to have here, which is basically kind of like you'd create kind of a bunch of poses or some time controlled animations is another way of doing it, that create kind of like a space in which they can blend. And so you see they've got some kind of like horizontal, like the spine will just kind of like spin within a region, and then once you hit a limit, probably usually about 45 degrees, you do a turn on the spot to sort of recenter you so that you continue to do stuff, so that you can continue to spin, sorry. Sometimes this is continuous movement around on the spot, but then you have to kind of like constantly move the feet, which is a little bit sort of weird sometimes, like especially if you're just aiming within a zone like this kind of thing. What else do we got in here? So yeah, I was jumping before. So she's jumping. I mean, a really athletic human could probably jump like that. It's not like Lara Croft levels, like old school Lara Croft, where she's jumping like Morpheus. It's kind of like reasonable, but she is kind of athletic. Oh, this thing, that is the craziest like slide distance ever. She's probably sliding about kind of 10-15 meters there, and she only has to kind of do a little bit of run to then slide kind of a lot. But you can kind of get away with that because in the game it feels like awesome. Like when you're running to kind of these bushes, it's way better game feel. They probably started off with mocap that was kind of way shorter, or maybe this is keyed actually. I think they keyed quite a lot from looking at some reels online, and then they probably just amped it up for the game feel. The same with these leaps. Like, once you have it leveled up, you can leap kind of miles, and the Superman leap. It's pretty cool, especially if you go kind of like leap and then go into crouch. So I wonder if when you leap, yeah, she gets back up into standing. So as you're doing this, if you're used to kind of how state graphs are put together, you can kind of almost map out the state graph. If you're not familiar with state graphs or state flows, basically the way that animation systems work is that there's a thing called an animation state machine. It's kind of like a big flow chart, and each box on the flow chart is kind of a move that happens. It's sort of how technical animators and some animators build animation systems, is that they create these kind of boxes and plug them together. And then they have kind of conditions which are like the kind of questions that you would ask on a flowchart. So yeah, you can kind of map that out in your head. I'm sort of starting to like, as I do this, I'm starting to figure out kind of like how exactly they built their systems, and then that's another recipe that kind of goes into the recipe book. It's things that I can maybe use in future. Again, like look at how this is lit. This is a good looking game. Another kind of thing to test with this kind of stuff is what happens if, because the character in aim mode is offset to the side of the screen, it's always good to see what happens if you go right up against a wall with the camera, because usually game designers like it so that when you shoot, the projectile goes exactly where the crosshair is. And in a lot of third-person shooters, in fact, the bullets come out of the center of the camera, even though it looks as though the traces are coming out of the gun. So, you like in a position like this, you don't want to be in a. You want that bow to be shooting. Like, I'm interested to see if this actually hits the tree or if it goes past. So yeah, you see the projectile there went out of the center of the camera and not out of the actual bow. So if I go there, bonk, it comes out there. That's just generally kind of better for game feel, and nobody's really doing this in the game, right? Like nobody's doing what I'm doing here, so that's cool. You also want to see what happens to the character if you like spin this camera really close. Usually people will disappear the character. There's a really cool one in For Honor that they did recently, which is where they do like a cutaway of the world. I'm not sure if it's suitable for everything, but it's a cool effect, and sort of suitable for them because they need to be their character, and where their character is framed on the screen is kind of really important. Again, I really am rambling here. So, I mean, they have a sprint mode in this. I noticed that her holstering the weapon there is on a timeout. So, if I pull this, I don't actually have control over when I holster. But this is probably counting down right now, and then after a while it's going to say, like, this guy who's playing this is clearly not in combat, and so now I don't need this. I also really like how, like, when you aim, if you let go of aim, you then kind of holster. That sort of ends up feeling pretty good. There's also a really nice thing when she runs here. She actually drifts across the frame a bit. Let's see if I can get her to do it. So it's maybe easier to tell if she's in kind of like the middle of the screen. But when you're just kind of like, I need to avoid those guys over there. Let's go back up here. So when you're just like jogging along, put your bow away, Aloy. I think it's on that animation. Normally, when you're doing locomotion animations, you would normally have the character go in a completely straight line. You don't want them to drift off their root object too much. But a kind of really neat thing that she does, I'm trying to get her to kind of like do it. It's very subtle, but she sort of will move side to side. Like, even though I'm only just pressing in one direction, I don't know if it's playing kind of different animations because I'm going up and down slopes. But I'm also sprinting. Here we go. There's some flat kind of area. I just run along here. Sort of notice that she's drifting kind of like side to side a little bit. There you go. It's not like I was expecting. Don't get spotted by those guys. So an interesting thing here is that they do the, well, okay, I didn't do it, but because the water's not deep enough, but they have like an auto dive mechanism, which is kind of cool. Like instead of actually jumping in the water, if you just run at the water, if it's deep enough, then you will automatically dive. Their climbing system's pretty cool. It's very automatic, but you feel kind of like a badass when you're doing it. Like nobody could do this in real life. I mean, unless if they found like reference of somebody doing that, then that's like awesome. But nobody like. I mean, I love the distance that she goes here. It's like it's really well animated. This whole game is well animated. But like, normally you'd have these really kind of tiny handholds, but it makes you know, it can make games feel like, when I say tiny handholds, I mean kind of like the reach distance between handholds is fairly small. It's just like the length of the arm, so that the character can kind of climb up, you know, properly. But it can make sort of climbing systems feel pretty slow, and they kind of get around this by just having her kind of like leap everywhere. But I love this kind of animation where she's just like, when I push up here, like, she vaults up and then uses her leg to push up. It's cool. And then like a lot of nice sort of like secondary swing there on her hips. Just kind of look at the sidle here. Let's see if she just corners. She does. There's a little bit of penetration there. This is a really hard move to kind of get right. So, and then, oh, jump too high. Can be interesting to see how kind of like characters go off high kind of ledges. One cool thing that they do is like when you leap, you go into slow-mo. But I mean, anyone who's played the game is probably aware of that. But yeah, it's interesting to sort of see like how much impact stops the amount of movement. So if I leap here, she kind of puts her hand down, which is sort of neat. Like I don't think she does that just normally. She just runs. But then if I leap off something higher and go into a sprint, okay. So they've probably got different different fall heights, and then they're tracking kind of like how much you're flying out. They have to deal with this guy. Oh. Or not deal with him. I'm just playing. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see, like, if I jump off here, they go into a roll. But if I maybe like jump off here, it's like hand down a little bit, although not too much. So they're probably doing a height check on the fall, or maybe like checking to see how long they're in the air for. Or it could be, because you can, you know, fall indefinitely, so they either do a check right, you know, from the moment that you lift off, they'll predict into the future, and they'll be playing, they'll pick an animation before you even jump that has been done all as a single animation. Or sometimes people can actually scale the jump to make sure that you're hitting the ground at the right point in the animation. Or otherwise they would transition from the jump animation into a fall loop, and then depending on how long you're falling for will depend on whether or not it plays like a death animation or whatever else. So just pretty agile. Just doing that. I need to like jump off a sort of smaller height, like this. So it definitely feels like there's kind of a little bit more impact. I'm trying to get her to like jump off like a mid height, so that. So yeah, it definitely feels kind of like the amount of compression is proportional to the amount of the jump, which is nice. I wonder if this is deep enough to do the dive yet. Cool. Which is nice. I don't know if that was like shifting to night, but that was pretty rapid change in time. So the combat system is pretty basic kind of stuff. In general, we do horizontal swings if it's not like a lock-on system or something, because that way, like if you were to do like a straightforward kind of jab, this thing's gonna come right at me. Is it? It's got sensors. If you were to do like just like a jab straight forward, that actually makes it much more difficult to kind of hit enemies. So usually you do kind of like horizontal hits, because then it doesn't matter if the enemy is kind of like 45 degrees to my left, 45 degrees to my right, or straight forward, it'll still hit the dude. Heavy attack is a little bit more directed, I guess. But I think, I don't know, maybe I can go find a watcher or something. I think it like auto sort of locks onto the target a little bit and does some steering. You can actually sort of steer a little bit like on entry into this. It's also worth noting is that they don't have a cover system in this, which makes life way easier for them. So I'm going to try just hitting this guy with a heavy attack to see if it actually kind of auto locks onto to the guy. Switch to a weak weapon just to get his attention.
Be fascinating.
Yeah, man. Over here. I just don't want to aggro everyone. So if I'm sideways... Oh. Yeah, so there's some kind of like auto lock on stuff there. It definitely felt like that was like... like that was magnetized a little bit, kind of helping me out. But I could be wrong.
That's it. Nothing to see here.
The thing worth noting is... okay, here we go, that's bad news. I was going to say another thing worth noting is that she kind of has like magic pockets with the staff. There's very few games that will actually kind of keep everything on your person. Sort of Last of Us is kind of impressive in that respect. Although you do end up looking kind of like, by the end of the game, as though you're just kind of, you know, one of the guys from Monty Python and the Holy Grail who's kind of carrying this ginormous backpack around with you. Full of stuff. Again, look how this game is lit. And the vegetation and stuff, and the kind of... To try and do this kind of lighting in an open world game is like really, really difficult. That can't be stressed like enough. Like it's always... Again, this is drifting off animation, but there's always enough of a fill light so you can always see what's kind of going on. It's never completely like pitch black. There's also really good contrast in this vegetation. It's kind of impressive. Like... not good. So you also have the focus. It's actually in a forward steering system rather than a strafe system, which I hadn't noticed before. But she's got a lot of head look on her, so it kind of looks like she's in a strafing system. A little bit. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. She's like got a head look on her, on things that she can pick up, I think. Yep. It's kind of good little subtle indicator to the player. One thing that I really wish is that you could climb on more stuff in this game. Like the climbing system's really nice and fluid, but there's a lot of situations where it's kind of frustrating that you can't climb on rocks or certain things, things that look as though you should be able to climb on them. All right, let's get like a mounted guy here. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa! Let's not do that. I've just been talking about oh shit! I've just been talking about Aloy, but like the creatures are really well animated in this game. Okay, no, they're not giving it for me. I was kind of hoping to like take over this guy, but I gotta back off. It's kind of nice that she doesn't really run out of stamina, but you kind of get this sort of impression that she's getting more and more tired. Okay, out of the frying pan and into the fire. Sort of her breaths sort of give you the impression that she's getting more and more tired, and it kind of subconsciously makes you want to stop sprinting. So you can maybe see here that kind of like little side-to-side drift that I was talking about.
I thought they'd go on forever.
Anyway, I've talked enough about this. This has been a bit rambling. I have no idea if this is interesting or entertaining for people, but yeah, this is the kind of thing that I do when a new game comes out. And yeah, if you stuck with me through this, then hey, thanks for listening and for watching, and yeah, have a good one.